Hola, weón, no.
Puta
Ey,
madre.
no lo pongáis, pon en silencio.
Ahora
dos
está,
segundos.
ahora está.
Hola, weón, no.
Ey, no lo pongáis, pon en silencio.
Welcome back to the Philosophy Podcast. Today, we will be discussing about AI, artificial intelligence. I'm joined with Jose Portales.
Yo, what up, fellas?
Ezequiel Chuac,
What's up, guys?
and Rocco Zautzik.
Hi.
I am Agustin Pino, and today we'll be talking about a range of things under AI. We'll be talking about in the spectrum of personhood, where does AI land? What are the future implications of advanced artificial intelligence? How would AI affect our society? The risks and limitations of AI, and the benefits of AI, and much more.
We will also add a segment for your questions, so be sure to ask some question in the chat. Obviously, ask real questions, not joking around. So ask anything you have doubts, and we add that section at the end.
First of all, let's begin with what is AI?
Well, AI is an acronym for artificial intelligence, and is any type of algorithm or intelligent thing created by humans. Underneath the umbrella of AI, we also have more specific types such as AGIs, ASIs, and the basic AIs we find in our society today.
But what's the difference?
Well, basic AIs are things we already know which exist, such as Siri, Alexa, the YouTube algorithms which recommend videos based on what you've watched,
Or basically any game you play, where when you play against the computer, it's an AI.
Yeah, I mean, video games are the basic example of what an AI is.
But
we also have AGIs, artificial general intelligence, which refers to AIs which are more advanced. They don't exist yet, and they are conscious and they have general knowledge or general intelligence, which means that they can learn new skills, not just the ones they were designed to do.
But with this advanced artificial intelligence, we might consider them. We don't really consider Alexa or Siri to have
Yeah, they're just basic AIs, so they're not as advanced, and they just do what they're asked. They're not conscious or do not could not develop a sense of consciousness.
So remember that anytime we mention an AGI, it's purely hypothetical because we don't have an AGI today.
it's approximated that this advanced AI will be between 2040 and 2060.
So in 50 years, will be it's pronosticated that the AGI will be happening. So, but do we think that the society is prepared for the introduction of an AI or AGI?
Actually, this is a complicated part of this debate because the social context that we are in each moment in time differentiates how we will perceive this advanced technology.
And we could relate it, not related, we can take the case of Harambe. It's the more recent case about the question we are asking here: where do we put AI in our society? And it's for the ones that don't know, Harambe was the case of a gorilla that tried to kill a little kid who got into his cage, and because of the kid in danger, they decided to shoot him. So there's the question we're asking.
The question being, would the situation be the same if instead of the gorilla it was an AGI? Would the society have the same reaction? And for this, it's important to determine if the AGI would be a part of a society first. So for this, we have a criteria here that is named the criteria for personhood. It is a list that its objective is to determine if a being should or shouldn't be a part of a society. This list consists of 8 different points. Do they have human DNA, consciousness, reasoning, self-motivated activity, meaning that can they decide to eat, for example, or to act upon it? The capacity to communicate, sentience, or can they feel pain? Social involvement, and self-awareness. An AI would classify in consciousness, reasoning, self-motivated activity, capacity to communicate. If you want to add to the system sentience, you could add it to them and give them the ability to feel pain. Meanwhile, Harambe would only classify in reasoning, self-motivated activity, capacity to communicate, and sentience. So the AI would classify in more criteria than Harambe. But would the social reaction would be the same if instead of Harambe there was an AGI inside the cage?
After the Harambe's death, there were a lot of groups campaigning to protect animal life, primarily because of the death of Harambe, which they saw as unfair. So the question is whether or not, if Harambe was a robot, an AGI, which posed the same threat to the kid, would the social response be the same?
I think this depends, as I mentioned before, about the context that we're in. For example, in the point that we are in now, there's a fight for animal rights. So people were very angry about what happened about the death of Harambe because they had to. It was part of protocol to be able to have to shoot him because this child fell inside. But but because we in our current context we do fight for animal rights. I don't think that right now, if this would happen with AI, that there would be social backlash. But in the future, possibly, like for example, something that we find obvious, if an African American were to be shot, there is general outrage. But for example, in the 1700s, this might not be the case. At the time, African Americans weren't put on the same social status as other members of society. So the context of which we are talking to affects this answer tremendously.
And we still really don't know if how the introduction of the AIs will be in our society, because not everybody knows how conscious AI would really work, and not everyone will understand how this works. The general public doesn't have an idea yet of how it will be, and it can be compared to when the Black Africans were taken from Africa to the US to enslave them. They, as you said, Austin, they were treated as like animals, and really it didn't matter if they were killed or enslaved.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think that the introduction of AI would be like probably the same, because it's a very like enslavable being.
Exactly. Like now technology is for our use, and this here we can take into account of intelligence. And I recently watched this video by Y Future where they plant this theory, which is in life there is a scale of intelligence. For example, at one of the lower scales and the lower pedestals, there's like ants, and then on a higher scale, there's dogs and cats, and higher there's monkeys and dolphins, and then at the highest that we know up to now, it's us. Humans are at the highest point of this intelligence scale, but if we create AI, maybe this would completely alter the skill that we have. For example, to elaborate on this, technology has the capability to evolve and grow at a staggering rate. For example, think about how much technology has changed in the last 10 years. Imagine now it's a little bit longer than that. Imagine the 90s.
I
In the
mean,
90s,
it was incredible how technology has changed in the last few years, and now just look at us.
exactly. And as the technology is changing so quickly, and there and with the creation of such an advanced AI, they could go up these steps at an alarming rate. And just to put this in perspective, a microprocessor runs 10 million times faster than neurons. So we have a great capability of retaining information, but for for a computer and technology, I can upload all of Wikipedia, and they could know more information than I will in my entire life in a matter of seconds.
Well, yeah, we could say it's because our society is the central point is our society isn't prepared for such a thing, even with like a more simple example like cloning, which is basically the same thing as us, but with the exception that it is created in a laboratory. And imagine how will our society react to such creation?
Exactly. This brings on to a very important question that we'll be talking about, and this is how would AI affect our society? For example, I'll start off by saying expanding on what Jose said about clones. If clones were to be made, and they will be equals to us practically, like logically equal, as they are exactly the same as us, but they were creating in a lab.
Or for example, the emotions would be chemical just as ours.
Exactly. But technology, they because they're so advanced, there's a possibility that it could be better than us. So right now we have technology as at a lower importance our own gain, our own entertainment, our own use.
It has never been in history. Technology has always been a tool for mankind, and with the introduction of AGI, it would be the first time in our history that a technology would be considered somewhat of a person rather than as a tool.
Exactly. And throughout history, we can see how, and when equals are suppressed and are put as second-class citizens, how they rebel. Well, how would the situation be if they aren't equals, they are actually superior to us? This is one of the questions that are planted of the great effects that AI could have in our society. For in another case, there's a possibility where AI can have large effects on the working class.
Yeah, absolutely. That was what Karl Marx said, for example, which he stated in the theory of technological unemployment, which is basically that at the short run, we'll have common problems like people without jobs, like an economy works. But then we could maybe understand like in later that it could transform into a communist system, and that a widespread economy finally.
Yes, because with the creation of technology, which would essentially do all the necessary jobs, such as gathering food or things we all need, a lot of people would lose their jobs, which could lead to a universal basic income to support these people, which have been replaced with technology in their workplace.
Yeah, I mean, it's example I gave with communism. If we let's put the example of a small farm for if if the farm just works on pure machines, then we could say people wouldn't have to work anymore, and machines could do everything for us. I think that was what Karl Marx was trying to say at the long run of the problem.
But an hypothetical AGI that would be like in charge of the recollection of food, for example, and basically would be enslaved by humans. Would that something be something positive?
it would depend whether or not it has a consciousness.
And
If it's a basic AI, we wouldn't really, it wouldn't be morally incorrect as it's just a tool. However, an AGI has a consciousness. We cannot use it the same way we would.
On the actual times, we could say that the replacement of AI or AGI, which they don't exist, but hypothetically, um, I think we could develop. We have developed an extreme dependency on such technology. It will also incentivize a lot of laziness. We know we're humans. We're very lazy, and most of all, most important of all, I think if we depend on machines, then where does our creativity go? I think like we're gonna lose it.
There is a risk, and there is a possibility that as that we can lose there our drive to work and our drive to be creative and express ourselves if there's such a wide range of technology or something so advanced as artificial intelligence that does everything for us.
yeah, because basically when that would be humans' last creation, right?
Exactly.
Because there would be a need to create anything after the super intelligent artificial intelligence, because that artificial intelligence would create what's necessary for humans, right?
And with a universal basic income, people wouldn't really be incentivized to work at all. They could just get their universal income and live with it and let the machines do all the work.
Mm-hmm. Now, coming back to whether or not the enslavement of the AGIs would be moral or not, it depends greatly on the view that you give it. We will talk now about Kant's categorical imperative as a way to determine if the enslavement of the AGIs is moral or not. What Kant's categorical imperative determines is unconditional principles that we must follow despite any natural desires or inclinations. Um, so relating this to back to AI, if a conscious machine that can feel real emotions, even though this is still debatable if it is possible because everything that we're talking about here is hypothetical. Conscious machines should be treated just as humans with rights and duties. So regarding Kant, a future where humans enslave conscious AIs would be immoral.
Um, for example, I agree. I think that if we have created something that has that is debatably a person in the category of person in the classification of personhood, it would be morally wrong to put them below us.
It would be the same as enslaving African Americans.
The other one is just like us, but at the same time, just because we're different doesn't mean that we should be treated differently. Like right now, we fought for animal rights, and I think they might reach a point that we'd have to fight for there'd be a civil rights movement for artificial intelligence if it gets to that point.
Because you have to have in mind that an AGI is conscious and will feel emotions. Either it doesn't matter if they are real or not, but
in the hypothetical
yes.
situation we're talking about.
Yes.
Well, and then we could talk if we expand it to another philosophical view, maybe with utilitarianism, which is the notion that every moral decision must be taken regarding the most happy outcome in relations to humans. So basically, if we perceive that AI is endangering our population, then how could we react to it? What would be morally correct to do in order to that situation, Mexico?
The
With utilitarianism,
Yeah.
well, we would have to calculate which outcome would bring the greatest happiness.
but I think that if these AIs do have emotions, we should consider them inside the utilitarian calculus because their emotions are real.
Yes, of course, but if they are robots which are more capable than humans, could we say that maybe their happiness, their unhappiness, by being enslaved, just a few of them would be maybe less or more than the whole population of humans?
So it depends like on the number of slaves, right?
According to utilitarianism, it would depend on how many slaves there were, and if having slaves would bring happiness to humans, because as we said, it could lead to laziness, which it might seem like happiness, but in the long run could cause unhappiness, really.
Yeah, but for example, we could have these AIs that we could make them like much more efficient than human beings and give them the worst jobs that no one wants to have.
And what I'm saying is that we could have a robot replace 100 people doing a bad job. So we could argue that that's ethical
Because
despite
yeah,
his unhappiness.
that's this regarding to utilitarianism because it
Yes, of
calculates the
Yeah,
happiest outcome.
and it was also created in a context where it was never thought that such technology would be developed, and basically, do we apply this theory to humans or not?
That's an important question.
Okay, another way to determine if AIs will be part of our society or if we should enslave them or not is to look at Aristotle's vices and virtues. For Aristotle, a virtue was a mean between two vices. So we have a table here containing a balanced characteristic with its excess and deficiency. For example, take the courage, for example, okay? An excess of courage would be rashness, like act rash, don't think what you're going to do, right? Or and a deficiency of this would be cowardice. If we could program these AIs to act in a balanced way and act in what Aristotle called the concept of the golden mean, to act as a virtuous person, would the AI be part of the society?
This is true. This is just plant an important question is, but for this hypothetical situation, I think that it would be helpful for society if with an AI, but if it's an advanced artificial intelligence or an AGI, they sense of free will. For example, there's a range. This is seen constantly in pop culture. For example, um, in Ex Machina, there she is it's a there's a robot. Spoiler alert, by the way. There is a robot that's created, which is a very advanced AI. But for the main character is randomly selected to be the first person to test out this new AI, but he doesn't really know what he's getting into at first. And throughout the whole movie, this AI is very nice, shy, and confident, and she convinces the protagonist that the CEO is a bad guy. So, during this movie, she is given a sense of free will, but because she's given a sense of free will in such an enclosed space, this brings on another risk that AI brings, which is this super intelligence could affect us to the worst. In this movie, we can see how during this whole movie, the AI character is trying to manipulate the protagonist. That we discover at the end, she's trying to manipulate the protagonist to be able to practically to get her to escape, because she is like a beta system. She is.
So let me ask you a question. This related back to Aristotle's concept of the golden mean. Would the human be acting as a deficiency or an excess, or would the AI trying to manipulate the other guy to like kill the other?
No, to get allow her to
or allow
escape.
her to escape? Would the AI be acting with vice, or the human be acting with vice?
I think that in this situation, the amount of limitations of its if it's an excess or deficiency is debatable. For example, you can say that the human is acting in excess in excess and isn't being and their vices aren't being balanced because the CEO of this company that created the AI created a living thing. This thing that they created has thoughts, has expressions,
Emotions.
has emotions, and she realizes that she is one of these models that he's creating, and so she feels that she it's discovered at the end that she's able to hack into the CEO's computer, and this random selection wasn't random, and so she was able to the CEO picked the main character on purpose, and the AGI in this movie is able to see the guy's characteristics in this small space of time that they are together. That's like small conversations throughout a piece of time. She's able to manipulate him into making her escape. You could say that she is ask that she is asking is acting in balance, as she's being courageous, but at the end of the movie, you could say that she does act in excess because, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, she does escape, but she locks the main character inside. The main character allowed her to escape, but she still escapes and leaves the main character inside. So
Like
the main
somebody it represents the superiority that the AIs will have in the
Exactly.
future
I,
on
I
humans.
think this movie poses the question of whether or not we should let the AI free. She was created by the CEO, however, she does have a consciousness, and if we followed what the deontological approach to this, we could say this is just enslaving another person.
exactly. This does bring up if they have if they should be enslaved or not, and also brings up the question is if it's smart intelligence. She was with him for a very short amount of very small pieces of times, but she was still able to manipulate a human that's supposedly like the highest being that we have in our world, and she was able to manipulate them and actually to do what she wanted. She didn't actually really care about him. She just used them to be able to get in the situation.
And also, I would like to mention that with super intelligence, there is a risk that as they basically know everything we know, they could create themselves another AI, or they could like improve themselves as much as they want, as they are much more smarter than us. We run the risk of them evolving at a much faster rate than expected.
I think that the movie posed the theme of consciousness in a very interesting way because she realizes that she's the beta, right?
Yeah.
And consciousness is basically our ability to understand that we are living and are and aware of our surroundings. So
Exactly.
I believe that's a very interesting way to post that theme.
That's there's another, but there's also a range of benefits that AI could bring.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about AGI, which is basically all hypothetical. But now we live in times where we have AI. In other words, machines, computers everywhere surrounded by us, and we can realize their benefits are a lot. For example, error reduction. Artificial intelligence helps us in reducing the errors and the chance of reaching accuracy with a greater level of precision. And
For example, if we had only self-driving cars, no one is driving a car in the street, we could assume that there would be a much smaller chance of a crash occurring as the cars can communicate between them.
And human error is like completely like
Yes, in the cases
destroyed.
in the cases we've seen of self-driving cars crashing, it's almost always because the human driver on the other car did something completely illegal or unexpected.
And also, when we talk about error reduction, it's interesting to mention the case of space exploration, which has grown exponentially in the last few years. It is incredible how sending a human or an AI can change the whole perspective of, for example, a problem. Humans for space exploration, we have had a lot of trouble. In the case of AI, it is practically impossible to them suffer any changes up in space, or even if they suffer any consequence, it wouldn't have any impact on us. It's just losing one more machine.
It's not the same as losing an astronaut.
Yeah.
For example, I remember a case that was a space astronaut doing like some cleaning on the outside of the like
In the station.
the space station,
Mhm.
And his air conditioning system inside of his suit broke, and he started to drown in water inside of space. For example, if an AI would have been in that situation, the need for a cooling system wouldn't be necessary. So the money spent on accommodating humans on the different circumstances would decrease a lot.
That's true.
Yeah, we can also highlight how we use AI in our everyday lives. Cell phones, computers. Just put the example of smartphones, where we have small conversations with Siri, and when we type, the own dictionary checks our spelling mistakes. So just it is one of the examples how AI like lives with us every day.
That's true. Until now, there's a range of benefits of AI, but I think the greatest risks that this brings to the table is when it's superior to us, and when it's just a good working AI, but not something that has consciousness and is a sort of and is under the criteria of person of and it, as of a person, but its intelligence is so advanced that it passes us in the scale of intelligence. I think that's the greatest risk that we have.
But why would it be a risk?
Exact for another example, in Age of Ultron, Ultron is a AGI or a super artificial intelligence, and he feels that the world was better without humans. In Age of Ultron, Iron Man creates the most advanced AI ever, and then once he creates it, the AI that Iron Man creates is called Ultron. But before that, there was already another AI, which was Jarvis. The name of the AI was Jarvis. So Jarvis was running a series of combinations to be able to create this advanced AI. And once they were able to create this AI, Jarvis starts speaking with Ultron, and Jarvis tells them that Mr. Stark will come soon. And this sort of explains that Jarvis was working for Iron Man. And Ultron immediately rejects this idea and actually kills Jarvis. Ultron connects himself to the internet, and he rejects that AI don't have free will, and he is so smart, so actually amount an exponential amount of information in such a small period of time, which is another risk which is why another reason why the artificial intelligence could surpass us in a social scale.
But I have a question,
Yeah.
because wouldn't we be able to give them information about moral ethics to this
Exactly.
AI and
But
stop them from?
in the case of artificial general intelligence, we can't really force them
Yeah.
to do this. We could teach them our ethical systems, but if he thinks differently, there we can't really convince him. Otherwise, we could just like kill him, but we could not change him.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Well, let's not forget that um, all when we talk about AGI, like I said previously, it's all hypothetical cases. AI shows us in our current times how it is limited when like when it leads to emotions, for example, because that's basically what differentiates us with AIs. AIs will never work. A computer will never work according to our own emotions, or even their emotions. So that's basically where we drag the line between um, our intelligence and the capacity of AIs.
Right. We could now change to another topic, and because throughout this podcast we have assumed that the AI do have emotion and they are real. But is this true? Will they have real emotions? Because the emotions that human beings feel are chemical reactions that happen in the brain, and the difference with the AIs is that they wouldn't be necessarily chemical reactions, but they will be like electrical.
I think in the same way a dog or a cat can never understand how we think, we will never be able to
Fully
understand.
understand how an AI thinks.
Yes.
Um, I would think that the emotions are real. Just because it's a different type of emotion doesn't mean it doesn't make it any lesser. If I create, if my range of emotions is based off is a because of a stimulus, I have a reaction, and it would be the same thing with an AI, just that it's different. I wouldn't understand why someone would say that it wouldn't count as an emotion.
But if an AI is created with no experience of a human being, would, for example, me hitting him in the face would be something positive for them because they don't have information about anything about humans, right?
Yeah, but that would be a situation you don't know how to react. Like if I go to another culture, like imagine if someone from like who's lived in his room his whole life, and he goes out to the street, and I show him the middle finger, he will know what that means. So he can't have a reaction to something that he's never dealt with before.
Or we could relate this with the ideology developed by John Locke, empiricism, which is basically we all our knowledge comes from previous experiences. So how could AI or AGI react? Like you said, if I point the middle finger with no experience, just data contained from a lab, for example.
Exactly. I think that this theory perfectly explains that their emotions would be would be the same as ours, as their if we create a consciousness, the range of emotions based on experience that they have will create the sort of personality of that happens to us, and it would create to them if we create a sort of um, a body, a technological body that has free will. If in this situation I think that there's no difference between our emotions and theirs. I don't think that just because they're technological does it means that their emotions are any lesser. Obviously, as I stated before, if you're never expressed a situation before, they won't be able to know how to react. But the same thing happens to us.
And you also raise the question, well, not really the question, but the limitations AI has. Because when we talk about experience, when we talk about then AI, we understand that they have a small space of improvement. For example, YouTube itself can improve it so that you can watch the videos that you would like to according to what you've watched.
The recommendation algorithm.
Yeah, so that's
it. The more YouTube you watch, the more it knows what to recommend to you.
Yeah, but that's when I say about like the small range of auto improvement AI has on our current time, but um, that's basically the problem,
So
which
they can only improve in what they're designed to do. They can't really, the YouTube algorithm of recommendation couldn't really start doing new things.
Yeah, like for example, care, concern, a belonging of togetherness, self-improvement, are some aspects that we humans face through our lives, and basically makes ourselves better and our society better. But in the case of AI, they are not able to experience such things, so the space for improvement is very small.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like if you have a chess playing computer, it can improve could ask that same computer to play checkers, a much more simple game, and it will have no idea.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and there also we could discuss about the creativity. When, for example, when we design a particular AI, there's no space for more creativity than the one we put in on it. Um, Basically, the concept of creativity is not possible in a computer.
For in as an AI, I don't think I don't think that there would be, but in an AGI, I think there would. Is if we create something that has free will and has a sort of consciousness, I'm guessing it could have creativity. I guess it could develop creativity, but at the same time, that bring another question that if you can develop creativity, you either have creativity or you don't.
Okay, we could now go to our question segment.
Okay.
We have 3 questions of you as to now.
Uh, Nicolas Sapar asked if an AI needed to choose between saving 1,000 viable human embryos or one child in a burning building, how would an AI objectively pick?
I believe that it would depend on the uh, ethical system it chooses, because not necessarily every AI will be the same, right? So I could have I could create an AI that it will follow, for example, the ontology. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it all depends on how you create that certain AI. In the case of, for example, a utilitarianist point of view,
Or you could also it would also depend on what that AI knows. For example, the AI which has to make the choice maybe couldn't doesn't know that viable human embryos will eventually become child.
Mhm.
and that
So-
that also, as we discussed before, shows us the limitations the AI could have um, in order to react to this certain problem. Maybe it is not programmed to function in that certain way, and maybe it's programmed in to act morally incorrect. And that's basically all the limitations AI could have.
And to expand on what Nicolas asked, we are near a future that this AI will have to take moral decisions. For example, on self-driving cars, they will need to choose if it's best to kill a dog or than a group of people, right?
Exactly. Like
Another question we had with a self-driving car which is driven by an AI which we already see today. How will it choose in the situation in which it has to crash into car A or car B and kill the passenger?
in that situation, these self-driving cars are coded to because they have a customer in the car. They have to prioritize their customer. For example, if someone is crossing the street, illegally crossing the street, and they have to swerve and crash into like a wall to be able to not crash into the other person, the self-driving cars wouldn't swerve and crash into the wall. It would end up hitting the person who was crossing the street, because you could think that logically and ethically, if there and morally, if I paid for a service and someone else did something illegal, and they know that they shouldn't cross the street when they and I don't have the permission to cross the street, they don't have their signal to cross the street, then they made a mistake. So why would so the system has that they prioritize their own their own
Passenger.
yeah, their own passenger, and even more so if someone is doing a stupid mistake.
And there, I would like to add which I like this idea about AI, that emotions don't interfere in the way they act, um, and I I would like to relate this to what David Hume believed, that emotions define purpose and motivations in life, and that rationality was merely a tool to use to meet the needs of the emotions. By this, we can understand that efficiency AI has over humans, as emotions can interfere on reasoning and decision makings. And in the case of the car, we could see how emotions wouldn't interfere in the decision that the car should have to make.
Um, I think we should also think of what moral theory the AI will follow, because in a case, for example, in which it has to choose between crashing into a car with one person and three people, uh, it would depend on whether or not it's following utilitarianism, deontology, what its response to a situation will be.
Okay, we can move to another question now. This one is from Henry Purcell. He asks, when do you think a viable self-conscious AI will be created, and which company, Facebook or Google, is closest to achieving this? Right.
I'm honestly I'm not sure.
About Google, a thing that happened recently, they announced a new service they will be offering, which offers what you do is you ask your Google Assistant to make a reservation for you in the restaurant or whatever you want, and this AI will call using real human voices, and it would seem human. There, we can ask the question whether or not this is moral, because uh, you're uh, you're essentially like lying to the person in the restaurant when asking whether or not, like, as posing as a human being when making the reservation.
And what Henry asked, DeepMind, I think it's DeepMind, the one that is leading the AI research. They recently developed a system that could teach himself how to walk. There's a video of it by the use of neural networks that are basically the way an AI develops himself. And this system created a like a stickman that runs and walks and jumps over obstacles, and that was like a very important jump, a leap from what we have in the past.
And for when this is gonna happen, supposedly it's between 2040 to around 2060. Um,
Okay.
for the next question,
Um,
we have Francisco Garcia, who said, "How do we stay in control of a complex intelligence system?" Honestly, if it might get to a point where you can't. We have to be able to control the situation. We have to limit its growth. We have to be able to control its growth. We have to be able to not create a completely free thinking, free this super advanced AGI that allows itself to expand and give itself and decide its own ethics and morals. Because if we do this, we can't control it. If it becomes if we create something so powerful and just throw it into the open and allow it to do whatever it wants, it might be able to have negative side effects. So to be able to control this complex intelligence system, we'd have to regulate it. We'd have to sort of put boundaries.
But also, I think you gave an example earlier of how when African Americans, which are equals to us, when they were treated as like inferior when they were enslaved, it inevitably consider how we will treat AGI as a way of not of avoiding
Preventing
this.
this.
Yes.
Exactly.
Way you do this would be like create like a legislation before they are created, right? Like
I guess so.
rights and duties for them before they are created.
Yes.
I think the United Kingdom is currently working on that,
Really?
creating a sort of civil rights for them.
A question here from Santiago Cepeda. Should the government have control over AI development?
No.
No. There are many private companies that are working on this.
The government shouldn't regulate an entire like industry. It's a
And
scientific discovery and scientific expansion is going to happen irrelevant if a government controls it or not.
I mean,
especially such a powerful tool, if it falls in like the wrong hands, for example, if Kim Jong-un had this power, we could see like very bad consequences.
and of course, for every thing a country controls, I think we need a basic regulation of the government on AI. But no, I disagree. I think if the AI has grown in the last few years, it has been because of private investment.
I agree. I think that if it's a private institutions, I think the development would be quicker and I think more efficient and better
But
quality.
We also have to consider if who is doing this, because if the government could maybe or should maybe have some sort of laws regarding this. They can't just allow whatever happens.
I agree.
Another question from Anna Amar. She asks, how can you determine if a system has free will?
This is a whole different topic. We have to be able to answer this question. We'd have to answer if free will does exist. To be able to-
But assuming that free will exists, an AI is capable of taking its own decisions.
exactly.
It isn't programmed to do anything. So we're talking about a super intelligent AI.
An AGI.
AGI, yeah. So any system that isn't predetermined to do something and it is able to create and to learn it himself has the ability to have free will.
Yeah. If it makes its own, if it chooses and acts because of their own choice, if they choose their morality, their ethics based on what they find logically and the right choice, I think that would determine if they have free will.
They will also have to have the point that we talked about earlier in the criteria for personhood, which said the self-motivated activity, which say that
Francisco Garcia then said and asked, how do we eliminate AI bias? In this situation for bias, I don't know what you mean. You're trying to say that an AI is not a freely as AI is not a freely intelligent being. To be able to reduce bias, we can't really eliminate the AI bias because whoever programs this AI, because it isn't doesn't have consciousness or free will, to be able to eliminate AI bias, you just have to regulate to not have it. But it's because you can't really eliminate AI bias because whoever programmed it created a bias. Everyone has bias and everyone has internal bias. So the AI will have the bias based off the people or the person who created it.
Henry Purcell asked,
All things considered, do you believe that the continued development of AI technology is a good idea, or as people such as Elon Musk suggest, do you think it could be a threat to human well-being?
I think we can't really guess the outcome of this. It will obviously have huge consequences, but I don't think we can really tell if they'll be positive or negative.
If in my opinion, I would agree with Elon Musk and someone and who's the person? Stephen Hawking, who they both are very like scared of this huge development of super artificial intelligence. Elon Musk actually said with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon, and Stephen Hawking said the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. I think in these two situations, they talk about situations that, like I said, like Age of Ultron or Ex Machina, where they are superior to us, and they have created a rage of superiority where they start improving themselves like Ultron does, where he consistently keeps improving himself. And to be able to, I think that if we create a free thinking, free moving AI, it might there's a very high chance that this does happen, that we either have to live together, or we will be brought down to a second class citizen compared to them.
Yeah, I would say that, well, in my opinion, if this becomes a threat to our society, in my opinion, I will prepare and make society act more in a utilitarian way, so that we maximize our happiness and our populations and our mates' happiness.
Maybe.
They ask, how serious of a problem do you think the point of singularity is, and how could we deal with this? What are the philosophical implications of this almost inevitable point?
I think the single. Okay, so
First,
people who
we should
don't know, the technological singularity is a hypothesis that creating artificial superintelligence will increase the rate of technological growth that we actually have. Like right now, we have the fastest technological growth that we've ever had. But if we create something that's smarter than us and that can take in information a lot quicker, and is a lot more efficient, then this rate would increase.
So basically, like the speed in which we advance in technology is an accelerating curve,
Exactly.
and it will reach a point that is
just going up.
no, yeah. So it would be infinite.
It's
It
like
would be
what
infinite.
what I talked about earlier about how we would create an AI which would be able to improve itself at a
At a like very accelerated rate.
yes
Uh,
runaway.
And I think the
technological growth.
and I think the problems that this will present would be that how we consider human importance would be the philosophical problem this would create. We would plant the how us humans are planted in the world. For example, um, with the existentialist or nihilistic or absurdist views, if our whole lives we were told that we are the highest point in our lives, maybe our whole world comes crashing down, and we realize maybe a nihilistic view for humans emerges, saying that we're actually not as good as we think we are, and at the end of the day, like nothing really matters, and even more than that, like if an existentialist would say that we can create our own destiny, but if there's such an advanced AI that it becomes if there's such an advanced AI that they become so much better and so much smarter than us, maybe we can't create our own purposes. Maybe the entire range of our society changes. Maybe our roles completely changes. And another point of view is maybe how we see ourselves in the scale of life. Like imagine someone might consider that as God, as we are the creation of God, and we should be in like the highest standard in society as God created us, and the Bible says, and like the different religions here, like we are us humans are like the I don't know, like one of like the most important part of like the living world that we live in. So if we create something that's better than us, this entire belief would shatter.
Yeah, it would be like the realization that we are the superior being in the world would be like immense for the society.
Some AI affect our behavior and interaction.
Actually, this is a very important point. This is actually very current. It's actually been proven that AIs that were created ever actually tried to manipulate people into believing into certain things. Like imagine, for example, Facebook had a situation where they put a sort of a range of like ads and different things that would pop up in your feed that tried to like manipulate people towards like more leftist views.
Yeah, and I also believe we are evolving in a progressive way with AI, in a way that our daily lives are basically done. Our works, school, jobs, whatever we do, is done by an AI source. So I think that if we continue like this, we will just have good consequences.
And about how they would affect our interactions, I think, as you said before, it could almost any job can be done by a machine if we eventually reach that state of technology. So it could reach to a much more lazy society, which lives off universal basic income.
And regarding interaction, it's obvious how we are in a constant interaction with AI machines and
Exactly.
technology, and it has become something natural for human race.
Juan Diego asks, "Do you believe in God?"
I don't think that's
I don't think
very
that's a very
relevant.
relevant question.
But ask a computer maybe.
It would be interesting to know what the AGIs would think about the God.
Oh, that's actually really interesting.
Because-
How would a computer have the
there-
ideas about the
there
concept of
isn't
God?
like nothing logical about God, right? It's
Right.
like pure faith.
Yeah,
So will faith be
guess.
something that the AI
yeah.
would
Would
be for?
AI have like faith?
Will
you
be
could
the
say?
like religious AIs?
Or in a society where AGIs play like a constant part and are seen as equivalents, we could assume faith in general will be very affected by this.
Right.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
We
We really enjoyed this podcast and answering your questions.
we hope that you enjoyed us.
And that your questions were answered.
Uh,
And
Just I hope you enjoyed.
see you then.